Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Edmonton Oilers. Now before we start, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you want to join the Hockey Brigade, how about you subscribe? Now let's talk about the Oilers. So Edmonton made the playoffs last year, and they were swept in surprising fashion by the Winnipeg Jets in the first round. I was pretty surprised, but it is what it is. Then this prompted the Oilers to make a ton of offseason moves and try to improve this team around NHL superstar Connor McDavid. The big names in this summer included Duncan Keith being traded over from Chicago, which is still going to take some time to get used to. Then they signed Zach Hyman to a 7-year deal from Toronto, and then they gave Darnell Nurse a massive 8-year deal. So, if the Oilers want to compete for a cup, they're going to probably need all three of those guys to be key players. Maybe Keith not as much as Nurse and Hyman, but still he's going to have to pull his weight. So Keith used to be a top pairing defenseman for Chicago, offensive minded, and his play has slipped the past few years, especially on the defensive end. Now, people are still going to view him as a two-time Norris guy, that's fair, but reality is he's going to have to just get back to some of that form in order to be worth his current cap hit of $5.5 million. Now, Hyman, he's a really interesting guy, a really weird guy that I'm sure Toronto would have liked to keep, but they didn't want to give him that deal. He is more of a traditional mindset where guys like the way he plays, or people that view him like the way he plays in that traditional mindset. He's big, he plays a physical game, and he can score goals. Still, I will say I'm a little surprised a 7-year deal was kind of weird, kind of funky, just because he is 29. What do they view him as in the future? We'll have to see. But it's Edmonton, so things are going to be a little different. Either way, he is projected to play on the first line with McDavid, and he'll be expected to carry his weight on the wing. The reality is, if you play with Connor McDavid, you can't have a bad year, so we'll have to see how that goes. Will he live up to a 7-year deal? Not really important right now because we're focusing on the moment, and it's all about him making this team a little bit better and them trying to make a cup run while McDavid is still young. Then, of course, we have Darnell Nurse, and Nurse is a guy that has drawn a lot of criticism because of his deal. Maybe not him specifically, but Holland, because of how big the deal was. And again, now's not the time to overthink it, talk about all that. I'm usually a guy that looks at the future, but if there's a team that needs to focus on the now, it is Edmonton, who have been pretty disappointing in Connor McDavid's time in the league. In my opinion, Nurse is now a top 5 blue liner. I don't know if that's that controversial, but he is going to get paid like one, so he's going to have to step up, prove people wrong, and say, hey, we're going to win a cup. I'm going to be the guy on the blue line. We're going to get this thing done. If these three players play well this year, they could at the very least, quiet the media about their big contracts, which is huge for Canadian franchise because how awful is it? You hear about it all the time. The Canadian market is just a tough market to deal with because of the pressure. Now, age is just like the contracts Ken Holland gives out, meaning that they're just numbers, and that's a thing we're going to focus on in this next part is their goalie situation here because their goaltending tandem is just weird. Their combined age is 72, and having two goalies over the age of 30 generally isn't something cup contenders do, but again, Edmonton does things a little differently, as Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen will be looking to be the players in net to rely on for the team. While Smith did have a good year last year, I don't think it's smart to bet on a 39-year-old to be your go-to guy. It just seems weird to me, and I feel thrown off by it, but it is what it is, and then Koskinen isn't someone that I would also bank on. But we'll have to see what they can do. Can they hold it together enough to get this team a cup? Can the offense do their load? It's one of those things where I don't believe in it, but maybe it could happen. And basically, I'm just saying I don't believe in this tandem. Will they be this great tandem this year? Probably not in my eyes, but you don't have to be great for this duo here. You just have to be good enough. And finally, the thing is, can they score enough goals? Which is a good question. Last year, they finished 7th in the league for goals for in a pretty weak defensive division in the Canadian division. And we know the first two lines can score, but what about the bottom 6? That is a big thing to talk about here. That's where I have my doubts, because they don't have a lot of punch. You look at this, and it kind of reminds me of somebody that works out a lot, but they only work out one arm or something like that. Maybe a pitcher or something like that, where your arm, let's say your right arm, is just jacked. It is huge. Whereas your left arm, you don't use it as much. You don't use it that often. That's what the bottom 6 reminds me of. And I think this is one of those things that you look at it, I don't buy into it too much, but maybe a guy like Ryan McLeod could boost it up a little bit this year. But the bottom six, I've got my doubts. That's all I'll just say about that. So, do I think that the Edmonton Oilers will win a Stanley Cup with the moves they made? The answer is no, I don't. And it's, they've got a lot of red flags for me as a team. You look at this team, the goalie duo. Do you really believe Mike Smith is going to be that guy? Because if so, I want to hear your reasoning. Again, it's not that I'm going to say you're wrong. I just really don't believe in it. And while McDavid and the German Gretzky can score with ease, I still have my doubts. The reality is, in the playoffs, opposing teams, they hone in on your best players. McDavid being a guy that people focus in on. He doesn't draw as many penalties, or just in general, the playoffs don't allow players to draw as many penalties because refs are hesitant to do that. The fans' reaction is always bad. The stakes are higher. They're less likely to do it, and that's something to keep an eye on. They weren't going to be able to draw as many penalties as you would like. That could be something that affects the team. It did in Winnipeg. Now, I am a big supporter of McDavid and Leon, but, the way I look at it, this team is not a team I could see or even imagine getting the job done. Maybe I'm wrong, but what do you think? Maybe they do. Let me know down below. Do you think the Oilers will win a Stanley Cup this season? Again, let me know down below. Like this video to like the video and subscribe if you want to be part of Hockey Brigade. Anyway, sorry for that slip up. You have a great day. You go love hockey and all that good stuff. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.